721 here, Big 550 KTRS. Better Together is an organization here in St. Louis that has spent the better part of the last 2+ years researching St. Louis, good, the bad, and the ugly. Joe Wilson joins us. Joe, welcome to Big 550 KTRS.
Thanks for having me.
How many studies is this now?
So this is the fifth study that we've done. We've got one more. We're doing general administration, and that's going to be our last one. But this is the last part of our public safety study.
Okay, and so you looked at, this is the first of 2 firefighter reports.
That's correct.
What does this report say?
So this study is just about the current lay of the land, how our fire protection and EMS services delivered today.
Okay.
So what we found was that we've got 43 different service providers. There's 23 fire protection districts in the county, 19 municipal fire departments in the county, and then the city is covered by the City of St. Louis Fire Department.
Okay, so the City of St. Louis has 1 fire department.
1 fire department.
St. Louis County has how many fire departments?
42. It's a lot of fire departments.
What's the difference between a fire department and a fire district?
So a fire department is tied to a municipal government. So City of Kirkwood has a municipal fire department.
Okay.
Their budget is paid. The fire department's budget is paid for out of the city's budget.
Okay.
A fire protection district is a big old taxing district, and it pays no attention to municipal boundaries for the most part.
Gotcha.
So it's a big old area, and there's a property tax leveled on residential, commercial, agricultural
in
property.
That district.
Yes.
So the Pattonville Fire District, which is a giant fire district.
Yes.
Everyone in that predetermined boundaries pays a tax into that deal.
That's correct.
Whereas the Kirkwood is funded through just regular Kirkwood taxes.
That's correct.
So none of these are volunteer fire departments?
We do have 1 volunteer fire department in the St. Louis region. That's Kinloch Fire Protection District.
So the other 41?
The other 41 are, yeah, it's an entirely professional force all across the region. And I've talked with some of the folks from out in Kinloch, and they're doing a great job with the amount of resources that they've got.
Let's talk about how different, do they all fight fires differently, or do they all do it the same way? Are they all using the same equipment? I mean, what are the differences between the 42 different ones?
So one of the major differences is that there's no standard operating procedure between all the different 43 service providers that we've got in the region. So, the first truck shows up to a house fire or something like that, and they're going to start battling the blaze. And the second truck shows up, and right now they've got to go and find who the scene commander is. They've got to go find, what do you want us to do? Whoever's in charge of this scene, what do you want us to do? How do you want us to proceed on this? The third truck shows up, has to do the same thing, and everybody has a different idea about how to fight a fire the best way, because
Right.
everybody has a different set of experiences, and there's no standard guideline for it. If we did have a standard operating procedure, that second truck shows up, the guys hop off the truck, they know exactly where they're going, they know exactly what they're doing, there's no question about it, and there's no argument about where they need to go and what they need to do.
So I don't think the Pattonville Fire District and Kirkwood butt up to each other. But
No,
let's say that the Pattonville Fire District has a fire on the edge of their district, and on the 2 streets over is a town that has a fire department, and it's shorter for that town to get to that fire, but longer for the Pattonville Fire Department to get to. Is there any reciprocity working between these boundaries?
Absolutely. It's called mutual aid, and it's really the reason why the St. Louis region is as well cared for by firefighters as it is today. Basically, the idea about mutual aid is that if your house is on fire, I'm going to show up as your neighbor. A, because it's the right thing to do, but B, because if my house is ever on fire, I'm really hoping that you're going to come over and help me too. Firefighters' first and foremost goal is making sure that there's no loss of life. Beyond that is making sure that, as little property is damaged as possible.
Right.
The most important thing is making sure that people survive, making sure that people aren't hurt, and they live that every day.
So the only way this crazy system works is if they all work together.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So the entire region is leaning on everyone every day.
Is there any other place like this in the country?
I'm not sure if anybody's got the same sort of level of fragmentation that we've got in the St. Louis region. There's different places. Pittsburgh has a huge number of small municipalities outside of in Allegheny County. Los Angeles has got a lot of small cities too, but they all have different approaches.
Right.
They all have different approaches.
Kelly mentioned volunteer fire departments. I know most of Long Island is a volunteer fire department in each town. And over in southern Illinois, there are a number of volunteer fire departments. So when you say volunteer fire departments, that doesn't necessarily mean it's bad, but it's an interesting way about serving fires. It works better in small towns than it does in big cities, I'm assuming.
Sure. There's different ways to make it work, and every community is unique in how they approach providing this service in particular, at least. And there's a way that St. Louis could probably be doing things better, and that's really the conversation that we're trying to get going all across St. Louis. Is how could we deliver fire services
Now,
better?
Joe Wilson is with us with Better Together. This is the first of 2 reports on the fire and how the fire departments and how we protect ourselves. Did you look at EMT and fire or just fire?
So we looked at fire and emergency medical services because a lot of fire departments in the region are providing both of those, and there are some districts and some departments that contract out with private groups, with Gateway Ambulance or Abbott or somebody like that.
Did you look at, because I know there's a big debate going on, when somebody has a heart attack, the EMT goes out, but also a fire truck goes out, and a lot of people ask the question, why does the fire truck go out if there's a heart attack at the home?
Well, very often on one of those fire trucks, there's also somebody who is an EMT on that truck. So it might not be an ambulance that shows up, but there is an EMT that's showing up.
Gotcha.
Too. And firefighters have become the Swiss Army knife for all situations. If you smell gas in your house, you call the fire department. If you have a heart attack, you call the fire department. If there's a cat up the tree, you call the fire department. If your house is on fire, they're still who you go.
How many times was the fire department called when there was a cat in the tree?
I'll have to look at run records for that one.
Now, Better Together, you don't make recommendations per se. You just tell us what the landscape's like.
Well, so every one of our studies is trying to answer 4 questions. How are services delivered today? What are agreed upon national best practices for that service? How does St. Louis rank compared to those best practices? And then what are steps going forward? What are some steps going forward that could help close the gap, if one exists, between what we're doing today and what are best services? So this report is just answering that first question, how are we doing things today? We've got a second one coming out that is going to look at best practices, how St. Louis ranks compared to those best practices, and how we could potentially close that gap.
And you're going to come back and tell us all about that when that happens.
I can hardly wait.
That is Joe Wilson, who has to go. There's a cat. We got a call while you were here. There's a cat in the tree. You have to go get the cat.
I got to go.
Where can people find out more about this study and the other studies that are really, really interesting?
You can go to our website, bettertogether.stl.com, and everything is published right there.
Joe Wilson, thanks.
Thank you so much.
728, Big 550, KTRS.